over me, you missed the fact that I got the information you want to confirm.
That's all I went out there. I was super cheating.
Super cheating.
Yeah, super. I'm gonna say super cheating.
It's elevated.
Yeah. I'm being honest with you. That was.
So you were just sleeping with anybody?
And
everybody.
Well, let's just say she was willing to do anything to get her man back, or at least that's what the situation seemed like. Mr. Butler believed Miss Moore was trying to pin a baby on his head just so she could find a way back into his life and be with him. Well, I'm not sure that's how the love charm works, but okay, Miss Moore. Miss Moore, on the other hand, believed he wanted nothing to do with the baby because of his manipulating wife. So he's married? Well, that explains a lot.
Say there is only one reason the defendant, Mr. Butler, has doubts he fathered your 1-year-old daughter, and that's because of his manipulating wife.
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Butler, you argue you've been told on multiple occasions by the plaintiff herself that you are not her child's father.
Yes, Your
And apparently Miss Moore had told Mr. Butler in one of their unending arguments that she claimed he was harassing her. She claimed she only told him he wasn't the father just once, but that did not seem to be the case when Mr. Butler and his wife narrated their own story. It was like both the plaintiff and defendant came to court to play the game of accusations because there was so much of that going around. Mr. Butler's wife was definitely the man of the house in this case.
Now, Miss Harrison, it is. Your husband says he was told by Ms. Moore he was not the father of the child.
Your Honor, on numerous times.
One time.
Numerous times.
One time.
That's a lie.
Harassment.
Really, harassment?
Harassment.
I ain't never
You
harassed
and your
you a day.
so-called husband.
Whatever.
Mr. Butler's wife stood her ground quite right. She was so certain the child could never be to her husband, and she wasn't just talking. She had proof to back up her claim. She did the math, and she felt the dates didn't just add up, and something was definitely not getting ticked off in her mind. Miss Moore was definitely not going to sit around and take in all that was being said about her conception period in the courtroom. She was going to put up a fight.
Personally, Your Honor, it doesn't. To me, I believe that the conception dates are all wrong, because how can you tell somebody they pregnant in December, but you have the baby in July?
Excuse me, correction. I was 7.5 weeks, December 11th.
Miss Moore had so much to spill in the courtroom. It was almost like she had been waiting for this moment all her life so she could just let it out. She said so much in the courtroom about Mr. Butler's cheating lifestyle. And trust me, he was doing a lot of cheating. It was so bad that his previous kids weren't even from his wife. Well, that definitely explains why he's been really quiet since he walked into the courtroom. He has a lot of explaining to do.
Now, if she can't do the math, that's her problem. She needs to sit down. December 11th, the doctor told me I was 7.5 weeks.
So that means November.
November then?
And the baby was born
July.
Now, when Miss Moore found out she was pregnant, she didn't tell Mr. Butler. Of course she didn't tell him. I mean, the man is a serial cheater. No one would want their child to have a dad like that. It's never going to end well. Miss Moore's mother was the one who broke the truth to Mr. Butler. After breaking the truth to him, he was surprised because Miss Moore obviously didn't tell him. He said he was going to be there for her and the baby. Did he ever show up? Of course he didn't. He disappeared into the wind and never looked back.
I called him and I said, you know, my daughter is pregnant. And he goes, what do you mean? I said, she's pregnant. And he says, well, I'm going to be there for her. I'm going to take care of her. I'm going to take care of the baby. All of a sudden,
no, Your Honor.
There is no Quincy in sight no more.
The courtroom couldn't contain both Miss Moore and Mr. Butler's wife. These two wanted to dismantle each other. After Miss Moore had given a heavy account of how Mr. Butler wasn't there for her after birth, his wife jumped into the mix with some new evidence as to why she was certain the baby couldn't belong to her husband. Apparently, Miss Moore had a fiancé who she believed stepped up for her and her baby, while Mr. Butler was nowhere to be found.
The baby doesn't carry his last name. Doesn't carry the last name. She's never shown him the birth certificate.
So your concern is that there may be another man.
I don't know if it was because Mr. Butler was scared of his wife, but he was doing a lot of denying in the courtroom. Miss Moore claimed they eventually resolved, and he came for a few doctor appointments with her and her child. Mr. Butler was in full denial mode, and he said he never followed her to any of the doctor appointments. He even said he only saw the child once, and that was because Miss Moore didn't want him to be there. You honestly can't blame her for not wanting him around.
Then yes, when she turned 2 months, because there was so many doctor's appointments, including while I was pregnant, I was seeing 3 doctors at the same time. And he knows that. He knows that.
I
So
don't know
after
nothing about that, Your Honor.
You were
Nothing.
there at 1 or 2 of them?
Nothing.
You was
I
there.
never went to none of them doctor's appointments.
Wow.
It was evident these guys were never going to amend things and live as a happy family. Mr. Butler's wife wanted Miss Moore and her kid as far away as possible from her and her husband. Let's hear what the judge has to say about the whole case and see who the real father of the child is.
Mr. Butler,
Yes, ma'am.
you are her father.
This situation escalated really quickly. It went from being friends, or should I say friends with benefits, to baby daddy and baby mama. Now, Mr. Lawrence and Miss Payne have been best friends for over 10 solid years. It sure looked like they were more than just best friends, because out of the blue, Miss Payne dropped a bomb on Mr. Lawrence and told him she was carrying his baby. As if that wasn't enough, she was engaged to someone else while all that was going on.
You claim she suddenly told you she believes you are the father of her son, 3-year-old Antonio Chandler. Now, Miss Payne, you admit, though you were engaged and sleeping with another man at the time of conception, you believe that Mr. Lawrence is actually your baby's father.
Now, their story started in a very funny way. When I say funny, trust me, it was funny as hell. Mr. Lawrence and Miss Payne have known each other for quite some time now, and in the process, one thing led to another, and they ended up getting intimate with each other in one of those moments. When Miss Payne found out she was pregnant, she picked up the phone and told Mr. Lawrence. He hung up on here, all right. In his mind, he didn't believe he could ever be the father.
The court is going to call you for a paternity test. I say, for what? She said, for Antonio. I said, Antonio already got a father already. So I said, why would you wait so long and tell me that I need to take a paternity test? So she's like, no, I couldn't do nothing.
Did you have sex with her?
Yeah, I had sex with her.
The mind-blowing thing about this was that Miss Payne had a feeling that Mr. Lawrence could be the potential father of her child, but refused to say anything to him. She even named the child after her ex-fiancé. Wow, that would definitely make anyone speechless and have so much doubt. When she was asked why she didn't say anything, she claimed she was scared and didn't know how Mr. Lawrence would react if she ever mentioned it to him.
Talk to me. Talk to me.
I was scared. I was scared to tell him. I didn't want him to act the way that he's acting now. And
How
he's
supposed to
turned
act
so
like that?
It was pretty hard to understand the dynamics of the so-called best friendship they were having. Miss Payne came in with a different story, claiming it was Mr. Lawrence who took her virginity, so she is sure for a fact that he is the father of her child. You can expect that Mr. Lawrence wasn't going to sit down and listen to any of that. He called her a big fat liar, saying she had been intimate with other men way before they ever had sex.
Come on now, if I took anybody's virginity, it took me that fast, that quick to
the
do it.
same day you
wouldn't let me take that
lied. It
virginity.
wasn't no same
If-
day.
if-
So wait a minute. I know
and
we're
you know I
here
got
to
a girl.
talk about paternity, but I want to figure out what kind of best friend relationship is this? Now, what is this?
Her ex-fiancé was never really in the picture. I mean, how do you name your child after a man who is almost never around to know what you need or how you're coping? She couldn't even remember if her ex-fiancé ever met the child while they were together. Trust me, Miss Payne is one funny ass woman, because who does that? What was even worse was the fact that she knew the baby didn't belong to her ex-fiancé, but she made him believe it was his baby.
Mr. Lawrence, why do you think she's lying?
The reason why, let me tell you, Judge. One day I went out to her house. I brought some drinks out there. We get to drinking.
Now the question in the mix of the whole story was, why did she wait so long to finally tell Mr. Lawrence that he could be the father of her child? I mean, she had so much time to break the news to him, so why didn't she? Mr. Lawrence even mentioned several instances where he asked her and expected her to be honest with him about who the father of the child was. But for some reason, she never told the truth. It's starting to seem like she has something to hide.
Why would you wait 3 years to say that?
Because I knew you was going to act the same way you're acting now.
That's not
this
right.
This man
That's not
tarnished
right,
my
though.
name
That's not
and
right. You wait
everything.
Who did?
Mr. Lawrence.
Well, she was definitely hiding something. She was asked why she didn't just tell Mr. Lawrence he was the father of the baby. Her reply left everyone in the courtroom with nothing short of surprise. She claimed that her son looked exactly like Mr. Lawrence. So once Mr. Lawrence picked up the child, he would automatically assume the child was his and would want to take responsibility. Come on, Miss Payne. That's really not how it works in the 21st century.
Well,
How
kind
can
of,
somebody just look at a child and just
because
say,
he
see
looks just
similarities
like you.
and just say,
Look
I'm
at
the
him.
daddy?
He looks
It just
like
doesn't
you.
work that way.
He looks
It just
like
doesn't work that
you.
way without you just saying,
He looks
I'm
like
the
you.
daddy. Did you ever tell me that? No. So why are you sitting here lying and
He
saying that
looks
you
like
told
you.
me this, and this, and
He
that's
looks
not what
like
happened?
you.
Well, I guess there's only one way out of this mess, and that's to bring out the verdict from the DNA results. Could Miss Payne be telling the truth about the paternity of the child? Or does Mr. Lawrence not just want to be a baby daddy? Let's find out.
Antonio, Mr. Lawrence, you are not the father.
Mr. Baker thought he had found the love of his life, only to get his dreams and hopes shattered by the very woman he fell in love with. He claimed he loves older women because they bring less stress to relationships, but that wasn't the case here. Miss Woods wasn't just intimate with Mr. Baker, she was also sleeping with his best friend, and now there is a high possibility that the best friend might be the father of the child. Well, I did tell you his heart was broken.
Good day, everyone. Mr. Baker, you claim you love older women. Now, you say when you met Miss Woods, you thought you had found the woman of your dreams and were thrilled to find out you were having your first child with her. But you say those dreams were shattered when you discovered she had sex with your best friend and he could be the biological father of your daughter, Trinity.
Mr. Baker started by talking about how he got intrigued by Miss Woods. He said she was the life of the party, and her energy was just the best anytime he was around her. That all soon came to change when he found out all she had done to him. Trust me, he wasn't just heartbroken, he was furious at Miss Woods. He even started calling her names in the courtroom. Well, I guess you should never break a guy's heart. They never get over it.
Her personality, I really was intrigued by her energy. She's like the life of the party, but her mind is what captured my heart. But after finding out all the stuff that she did, I look at her like a dirty dish rag trying to wash clean dishes.
Oh, Mr. Baker was such a sweet man. While she was pregnant, Mr. Baker was the heaven-sent man who took care of her. He was cooking, he was cleaning, he was washing. You name the house chore, Mr. Baker was doing it all. Things took a turn for the worse when his cousin called him and said she had some heartbreaking news she wanted to tell him, but didn't know how to go about it. Mr. Baker was definitely not prepared for the news that was about to hit him.
Cleaning, cooking, and I don't even cook, Yana. So you know how serious it was.
Yes, he did
I'm planning
that.
for this life. I was really serious about it. 8 months into the pregnancy, I get a phone call from my cousin. She said she got something to tell me, but she didn't know how to tell me because it was gonna hurt my feelings.
Miss Woods didn't deny any of it at all. She said she actually did sleep with Mr. Baker's best friend. In her defense, she blamed it on the alcohol, claiming she had a little too much to drink the day it happened. Apparently, she happens to be a mother of 11, and the child whose paternity is in question is going to be the 12th child. Wow, she really lived her best life back in the day.
I'm blaming it on the alcohol.
And
You're not the first in this courtroom.
Y'all don't understand that, but the thing of it is we had a little too much to drink, and everything is about being at my house, throwing parties, inviting everybody over to my house. My house is what we call the party spot.
Crazy enough, Mr. Baker and his best friend slept with Miss Woods just a day apart during the window of conception. Miss Woods has some real nerves playing that kind of risky game with two men. It was almost like she didn't care at all, and all she wanted to do was have a good time. Both Mr. Baker and his best friend's names were not signed on the birth certificate, which then begs the question, who is the father of the child?
Is that because you were doubting paternity?
she told me after I confronted her that she did sleep with Jimmy. And we both slept with her like a day apart around the conception time.
Okay.
And I have a chart that I made.
Jerome?
And Mr. Dudley walks into the courtroom, and it becomes a totally different ballgame. Miss Woods definitely didn't want him in the courtroom. As soon as he walked in, she wanted to rip him apart, but that really wasn't his business. He felt bad and wanted to patch things up with his best friend. But Mr. Baker definitely didn't care about any of that. He just wanted to know if the child in question belonged to him.
You just try to look out for him, make sure he, you know what I'm saying,
looking out
watch
for
out
me,
for him.
bro?
Yeah, bro.
You was looking out for me.
Yeah, bro.
How was you looking out for
You
me?
got a little slut bucket. This is a
Come on,
slut
bro.
bucket right here, bro.
If that's the case, if you was looking out for me, why you didn't tell me? How come I had to find out from somebody else?
Hey, bro, let me tell you like this here. It happens like that sometimes.
Why you didn't tell me? Why you didn't come to me like a real man?
Mr. Baker lost his cool in the courtroom. He was yelling like a wounded lion who wanted to get revenge on everyone who wronged him. His best friend said he knew Miss Woods wasn't good for him from the very beginning. But Mr. Baker never listens, so once again he decides to allow Mr. Baker to follow his path. Well, I guess Mr. Baker should pick better friends in his next life.
So I just let you run on with that thing right there and do what you do, bro.
So when was you gonna tell me though, bro? When was you gonna let me know? 15 years later?
Hey, man,
18, 20 years later? What if this your child, bro?
Hey, man,
And you got me out here
It ain't
trying to
his
take
child.
care of this child.
One
we
minute.
just gotta do what we
it
gotta
is.
do, bro. But I mean, you gotta fix this, bro. But
Bro,
you
whatever,
know, I know
bro.
you
You
just
a
like
dumpster to me,
over
bro.
for years, man.
You
we
a
gotta fix
dumpster
this,
and you
bro.
trash and the trash belong in a dumpster.
It was turning into an unending catastrophe in the courtroom. The judge had taken enough of their rants and arguments, and she decided it was time to bring the situation to a close by reading out the DNA results. Who do you think the father of the child would be? Mr. Baker or his so-called best friend?
Mr. Dudley, you are not her father.
Ooh, chew on that.